Let's return to This Week in America. Here's your host, Rick Bratton.
Welcome back, everybody, coast to coast. This Week in America. School Days and Beyond by Vashti Hinds is a compilation of true events which occurred in her childhood, teenage years, and beyond. It tells of community life in a British colony, the discipline and respect for authority, spiritual lessons taught, the happy times enjoyed by all before the advent of television and video games, doing chores, truancy, and skirmishes, which makes one aware that there is nothing new under the sun. Being raised in a Christian community, each story is preceded by a verse of scripture which corresponds with the story. Born on the East Coast of Demerara, Vashti Hinds was mostly raised in the Upper Demerara River district of Christianburg, which is a component of what is now known as Linden. She attended the Church of Scotland school at Christianburg, then St. Joseph's Convent High School in Georgetown before leaving British Guiana at the age of 16 to attend Caribbean Union College in Trinidad. Her nursing career took her to New York, where she obtained a master's degree in community health from Long Island University. Vashti Hinds, author of School Days and Beyond, joins us on This Week in America. Vashti, welcome to the program. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you.
It's a delightful book that you've put together. What was the inspiration? Why did you decide to go back and reflect on these early days and write this book? What was the motivation?
Well, there were so many things that happened that made me smile to myself as I grew older. And there were a lot of stories that my mother told me, and I just didn't want to waste them. So I said, I need to put these somewhere so somebody else who might have had a similar, background or childhood might be able to reminisce and enjoy what I did.
And even if it's not quite similar, it's fun to read the book is so well done. School Days and Beyond by Vashti Hinds, and I'll give you all the information on that where it's available as we go through the program. How long did it take you to write the book? Once you decided I need to go back and capture these memories and share them, how long did it take to write?
3 weeks by hand.
Wow.
Because once I started to write, everything just flowed. I didn't have a problem. I had everything right at my fingertips.
That's amazing. So all these memories came flooding back to you, and you were able to write those. And you wrote them by hand, too, rather than the computer.
Yeah. I wasn't, well, at the time I was having a problem with my vision. That really was a problem. So I really could not see. I was about, almost diagnosed as, losing my sight. So I said to myself, if I lose my sight, before I do, let me write these down. So I started writing by hand.
And the result is School Days and Beyond. Vashti Hinds is our guest. If you're Googling, that's V as in Victor, A-S-H-T-I, Hinds, H-I-N-D-S. Book available at Amazon, the usual places. Link on by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. How are you doing now? How's the vision now?
Well, it really came right back. I was surprised because I even gave my ophthalmologist a copy of the book. He was surprised. Yeah.
Well, that's great that it's back and everything is back, hopefully normal in your life. I love the title. It's School Days and Beyond, and DAZE is D-A-Z-E as opposed to D-A-Y-S.
D-A-Y-S.
Yeah, why D-A-Z-E?
Because when we were kids, we were really in a daze because the old people, kept telling us different, parables and things, and you're going to know when you get older and stuff. So we were in a daze. We were enjoying ourselves. We were not really serious. But now as we grow older, we can understand what they were really saying to us. So I consider that as being in a daze. It really was.
When I'm thinking of that and looking through the book and looking at the title, I think we all grew up in more of a daze, D-A-Z-E, than D-A-Y-S as we were growing up. That shows you how Vashti has been able to capture that childhood and put it in her book, School Days and Beyond. Let's talk about school day, D-A-Y. What was it like for you? Describe a typical school day for you as you were growing up.
Well, would that be in elementary school or high school or which one?
Well, let's start with elementary school. What was that like as you were
Elementary. Okay.
laying your
Well,
foundation?
we woke up very early in the morning, like 5:30. We had morning worship for the whole, the family. Then my mother left for work, and we had to do our chores, which included fetching water, milking the cow, making breakfast, things like that. Some days I had to go to music lessons before I went to school. School started at 8:30. When we got to school, there was more prayers and singing of hymns and everything because it was like a Presbyterian school, Church of Scotland. The church, it was named Church of Scotland because the person who settled that area of Guyana, of British Guiana at the time, really came from Scotland. So we had prayers and readings and everything before we went to our individual classes. At 11:30, we dismissed for lunch. We had to say a prayer before lunch and sing that same prayer. Go home. We walked home and we had an hour. We came back. Then we had to say grace after meals and sing that same those verses.
Yes.
And then we had the afternoon session, and then we dismissed with prayer and singing. That was a school day. We went home. We did chores. We did our homework, and we had evening worship. And then we went to bed.
It sounds like a full day, but it sounds like a happy day as well. You obviously look
Yes,
back with very fond memories of growing up and the friends you had during that period.
Yes.
And it's all captured in Vashti's book, School Days and Beyond. Book available at Amazon, wherever books are sold. How was it like growing up in your community under the British system? Talk about that and maybe some differences that we wouldn't be aware of here in the United States.
Well, everything was very regimented. Everyone wore a specific uniform, so you knew to what branch of the government they belong. And anyone could correct you on the street, and you couldn't retaliate, or else your parents would hear about it, and then you would get another whipping.
Yes.
And everything was regimented, but we understood that it was for our protection, and we just enjoyed whatever was given to us. That was it.
What was family life in your community? What was that like?
Well, if you were lucky, you had a mother and father. When I say lucky, because some men perished early, like my father lost his life before I was 7 years old to drowning while he was trying to go to work. So there were a lot of accidents, but the family consisted of mother, father, children, and children from maybe another part of the family who had tragedy. So my mother took in 3 of my cousins. She raised 3 of my cousins, and then any elderly person in the village who did not have a caregiver, she brought them to the house. Our house was always full.
And that had to
that
give
was
you
your family.
that had to give you an excellent perspective on other people, getting along with other people. British Guiana, talk about that. How many races make up the population of British Guiana?
6. You had white, you had black, you had East Indians from India, you had the American Indians who are the indigenous people, you had the Chinese, and you had who else?
It was a real melting pot, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you had such diversity there. As a child,
and the Portuguese,
Portuguese
I'm
as
sorry,
well.
Portuguese.
Okay, that gets you the 6. As a child, did you witness many racial conflicts?
There's a few, but you couldn't let the adults know what was going on. If you started a fight with anybody for any reason, you had to have 2 lookouts. because if you saw an adult coming, you had to disperse. Yeah.
Vashti Hinds, our guest on the program. That's V as in Victor, A-S-H-T-I, Hinds, H-I-N-D-S. The book is School Days and Beyond. DAZE is D-A-Z-E, where most of us spent most of our time growing up, not in days, but DAZE, D-A-Z-E. Book you'll find at all of the usual places. Go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, link on, and get information on Vashti's book. You did such an excellent job with this book. Are you writing another book?
I am. I'm writing about my travels. So far, I have visited 62 countries. So I'm going back in time and writing about my travels. I hope I finish soon.
Well, yes. How are you coming? Are you close?
Not really,
Oh.
because there's so many things that got in the way.
Oh, yes.
But
yes.
I'm going to persevere and do it because I think it's going to be interesting too.
Now, is this still writing by hand, or do you have a computer now to help you along the way with this?
I do have a computer, but for some reason I prefer by hand. I do.
You know, I do think there's something to that just act of writing it out where it sort of resonates more than you're banging away at a keyboard. So
Yes.
for many people,
Yes,
they
it does.
they like to do it that way, and they feel like they're in control and the keyboard is not. And that'd be interesting. I hope you come along with that, and we have a chance to talk about that as well. Many of the stories in this book, School Days and Beyond, are around your mother. You mentioned her just a few minutes ago. Sort of a welcoming woman, and nobody was a stranger. It seems like anybody that needed help could come to the family home. How was she viewed in the community? And it sounds like she really was the matriarch of your family and maybe many others.
She was. She was. On Fridays, she used to bake, and we had to take a loaf of bread or some food to all of the old people in the community. We had some people who were blind. When it was time for them to receive their pension, we had to take them to get their pension, bring them back home. If someone was hospitalized, when they came home from the hospital, we had to spend a couple of nights with them to make sure they were okay before they were left alone. So that was how my mother was. Yes.
Besides the input she had on the community, it was on you, and I would assume all the other children as well. What was that like? When you watched your mother, it's just sort of natural, I would assume, for you to reach out and help other people. You couldn't be selfish during that period, could you? I mean, you really were there to help other people.
But as a child, you would be a little jealous when you see her doing things for people. And I swore that I was not going to be like her. But then I grew up and I turned out just like her.
Well, and in nursing, where you're reaching out and helping people all of the time, I mentioned in the beginning, raised in a Christian community. This really had an impact on how you went about writing School Days and Beyond, and I'm sure the foundation for your life as well. Talk a little bit about that, growing up and that foundation that being in a Christian community gave you.
Well, almost everyone in our in Christianburg, that's why they call it. I don't know why they call it Christianburg, but 70% of the people were Christians. So everyone went to one church or the other, and everyone knew where the other one belonged, and they respected, the other's religion, and we just did the things that we knew were right, because even people who did not go to church, they expected you to do the right thing. So you couldn't get away from it. Yes, but
when you decided, you went to college, as I mentioned, in Trinidad, came to New York City, got a master's degree in community health from Long Island University. Talk about that, the motivation to further yourself for education, to come to the United States to help people here. I would assume that goes back to the way you were raised, the family, and your mother's influence.
Yes, well, after my mother perished in that bomb blast, and I knew I didn't have any very close relatives left in British Guiana. And my brother and I were in Trinidad. We decided to come to New York City. And I really was supposed to be going to medical school, but trying to help my brother and everything else that came in the way, I just decided to go as far as I could with nursing. I love the hands-on, situation.
Oh, yes.
I even moved to North Carolina and worked in the field in North Carolina for years, just visiting in homes and, places like that. I worked the prison system. I did a lot of work among people who were disenfranchised, and I just felt at home doing it.
Well, lessons learned at an early age have taken you through your life and learned to give, be there as an inspiration, motivation for other people. A couple minutes left in the program. Vashti Hinds is our guest, author of the book School Days and Beyond. I'll give you all that information here in a minute or so. What was it like for you writing this book, going back, and the memories all came back? Obviously, they weren't stored in the back of your mind somewhere. They were there. They were prominent. You wrote the book. What was it like going back, looking at this period, and then getting a very positive reaction from people who have read the book?
Yes, I have had letters from as far as Antigua and all over London, everywhere, especially the people that I mentioned in the book, because they knew that what I said was true. A lot of my friends will tell you, if you want to know anything, ask Vashti, because from age 3, I remember everything. So doing that was really something that I enjoyed. I really did enjoy it. And I guess I will enjoy the next one because I've already started it.
Well, yes, and I hope we have a chance to talk about that. This book is published and out there now, and as Vashti said, touching people all around the world. Vashti Hinds, that's V as in Victor, A-S-H-T-I, Hinds, H-I-N-D-S. The book is School Days and Beyond. DAZE is D-A-Z-E if you're Googling. Take a second here at the end. I love the book cover. Talk about designing the book cover, because it really does an excellent job of capturing our attention when we see it.
Well, it looks almost like my school, my elementary school. We had a few windows that, you could look out, and there's the girl playing hopscotch in the front yard. We used to try to come back from lunch as early as we could so we could play games in the yard before the bell rang. And, we bought food or snacks from the women on the outside. So we would rush home to lunch, rush back to school just to be in the schoolyard. It was really a fun time. It was a fun time.
It's a fun time as you look at it. And for us older readers, it brings back some memories where, our activity was not a video game. It was a jump rope. And we had that, or a stick that we had to play with and with other people. And we were able to make do with that and survive during that period. The book is such a delightful read. School Days and Beyond, D-A-Z-E. Vashti Hinds is the author and our guest on the program. That's V-A-S-H-T-I. Thank you so much for being with us on the program. Good luck with the next book. Hopefully we'll have a chance to talk about that as well. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you.
It has been
Thank you. I appreciate it.
It has been a pleasure. The book is School Days and Beyond. Information on our website, thisweekinamerica.us. And we're back after these messages.
This Week in America is online. You can visit our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Scott Pinkerton, Associate Producer of This Week in America. Jay Anderson, Segment Producer. Ben Watson, Webmaster. Otto Bechet, Director of Engineering and TV Production. This Week in America produced and is a trademark of Blue Funk Broadcasting, LLC. For information on all of our guests and to listen to this week's show, our website again at thisweekinamerica.us. And I'm Sean Bratton, Executive Producer of This Week in America.